So managing SDRs can sometimes feel like herding cats. It's really difficult to make sure that everybody has all of the tools that they need at all times, that they're ramped and fully enabled. And I'm going to share with you a few things that I've learned to help mitigate that whole rigmarole. So the first is finding your single source of truth, educating marketing teams as well as other teams as to what tech stack you're using, and then enabling people to use other alternatives as to the one ideal that might be put in front of them. So particularly on the inbound side, what we find a lot of the time is that people were mistriaging things because after events, they were all using different data sources in order to determine who something should be routed to. So whether that's revenue or number of employees, a lot of companies will use different things and to determine whether this is field or commercial, and we were all using different platforms. It made a really disjointed customer experience because halfway through a deal cycle, we were lobbing it over the fence to another team, SDRs were getting stuck in the middle. It was just overall like a very disjointed experience and something that impacted the customer's experience of buying and then also their impression of the brand, and they're less likely to become advocates afterwards. So about 6 months ago, we introduced one single source of truth. And there's a million out there. We use DataFox, but there's literally a million that you can choose from. And it's just important that everybody be aligned as to what tool you want to be using. And this one in particular was relevant for us because we were also looking at things in the States and in EMEA, as well as APAC. And some of the data sources that we were looking at previously were really good in some regions, but not so good in others. And so this was one that we found to be particularly relevant across the board. The next thing I want to talk about is educating marketing as well as other teams on your tech stack. So at Hootsuite, the SDR team sits under the marketing team, a highly contested topic that I'm happy to debate at any time. But it was really, we moved offices recently, and we ended up sitting right beside the marketing team. And there were certain questions that were coming across my desk that were just mind-boggling, like, you guys have a Danish speaker on the team? Like, yeah, we hired her 6 months ago. I'm really glad that you guys have met. Or how are you guys using emails or stuff like that? So I went as far as to show the marketing team or my marketing colleagues not only what tools we were using, but I went into SalesLoft and showed them how to build a cadence. And not necessarily because they themselves were going to have to do that, but it was really helpful for them to understand when they gave us an event brief, what types of things were going to be right in front of a rep when they were making a phone call. So, making sure that they had the link with like 5 talking points that could be right in front of someone as soon as they got on the phone was invaluable. Getting 2 sentences about the event specifically that the SDR never attended, didn't read anything that they sent over, but that they could have that information that made it seem like they were right front row and center, was also like it was a game changer. And sometimes being on a sales team in marketing, I feel like a bit of a child of divorce, trying to educate the left and the right hand as to what they're doing. And this was one thing that we introduced that really changed the way that those 2 teams work together. And all it took was 15 minutes of showing people what it was that we were looking at. The other thing that I find is that a lot of times in the marketing department, and I can say this because I'm in the marketing department, there's a tendency for people to want to change everything at once and run 1,000 emails through Marketo and change a lot of things very quickly, when the SDRs are actually a really great breeding ground for little small experiments that can show marketers what's working and what's not. So instead of running 1,000 emails through Marketo, why don't you send 100 emails from an SDR with an emoji in the subject line and 100 without, and see which one performs better. With SalesLoft, you can have all those like little data sources as to which ones are opening better. It's a really valuable tool and something that marketers just never knew existed. So this has really been a game changer for us and has really changed the way that both sales and marketing teams engage with one another. And then finally, and this also like kind of goes back into what I was saying before about follow-up, but one size doesn't fit all. And I think a lot of times like our HQ is in Vancouver, and there's a tendency for HQ to send over a bunch of material, especially when there's larger campaigns to follow up on. But the language that they're using isn't exactly right. The translation sounds like it came from Google Translate. It's just not really fitting with the region. And allowing people to make changes to the way that they're engaging with customers makes that sound like a more authentic and approachable tactic. And so one thing that was really great when we started using SalesLoft is that we were able to give reps an idea of what they should be talking about, but then they were able to go in and edit their cadences and make it seem a little bit more appropriate, use the right conjugation or pronouns as is not necessarily appreciated. And this really changed the way that we were able to engage with customers. And then we also fed this back to marketing, again, as I was saying before. We also did something similar with Conversica. We were using a bot that we configured in North America, and the language that we were using just did not fit EMEA. It was very customer service centric, and I'm from North America again, so I can say this, but it was very like chipper, and the way that I feel like we're engaging in the UK is a little bit different. I can't put my finger on it, I can't describe it, and it's taken me 3 years to figure it out, but I think it's worth noting that you need to enable people in region to make these types of changes. So we recently introduced a bot here, and it's upped our conversion rates, like it's been a really positive change, but you need to be able to make sure that those tools are in the hands of people that you're working with. So that's all I have to say for today, but I think it's important to remember just to put the right tools in the right hands at the right times and enable people to make their own decisions while educating your peers about it. Thanks.
Thank you. That was amazing. Thanks so much.